Hi everyone, in this video we will discuss all the type C questions of the chapter conditional and iterative statements of class 11. Now let's begin with a very simple program that you have to write a script that will ask the user to enter a length in centimeter. If the user enters a negative length, then the entry is invalid. Otherwise, print the result in inches, where 1 inch is 2.54 centimeter. So first of all, we will accept the length from the user and store in a variable, let's say length. Now it will check if length is less than 0, then it will print invalid length. Otherwise, it has to be divided into 2.54 to convert it into inches. Now I is a variable which will store length divided by 2.54. Now once this value is divided with a decimal value, then the result will also be a floating point number. So here you can use a round function so that it will limit the digits after the decimal point. Here I have given 2 so that it will have 2 digits after the decimal point. So you can just print length is inches, I inches. So once you run the program, it will ask you to enter a length. Let's say the length entered is 98, minus 98, then it will print it is an invalid length. The second run, if you enter the length like 120, so it will convert it into inches and will print length is 47.24 inches. Now the next program is a store charges rupees 120 per item if you buy less than 10 items. If you buy 10 to 99 items, then the cost is rupees 100, and if you buy 100 or more items, then the cost is rupees 70 per item. Now you have to write a program to ask the user how many items they are buying and print the total cost. So this program will use a multiple if statement. In each if you have to give the condition. So first of all, you have to enter the number of items that will be stored in a variable, let's say items. Now, if items is less than 10, then price will be items into 120 as per the condition given in the question. Now, the second if is like this: if the items is more than equal to 10 and items is less than equal to 99, then the price will be items into 100. And the third if condition is like this: if items is greater than or equal to 100, then price is equal to items into 70. Like this, your prices will be calculated depending on the number of items. Then finally, it will print the total cost is price. So once you run the program, first run, let's say the number of items is 9. Then the cost will be 1080. And let's say in the second run, the total number of items is 77. Then the cost will be 7,700, like this. Now write a program that asks the user for two numbers and prints close if the numbers are within 0.001 of each other and not close otherwise. So what you have to do, you have to take two numbers into variables num1 and num2, and they have to be float type of data because we are checking whether their difference is 0.001 or less. So obviously you have to take two float variables. Now d is a variable which will store the difference between these two numbers, num2 minus num1. And here we have used one absolute function. ABS function is used to convert to give the absolute value of the number. That means if the value is a negative number, then it will be given the positive number. The output will be a positive number. Now it will check if d value is less than or equal to 0.001 or not. If it is, then it will print close. Otherwise, it will print not close. Now let's run the program. Let's say the first entered number is 7.234 and the second one is 7.237. Now their difference is not less than 0.001. So it will print not close. In the second run, let's say the first number entered is 7.234 and the first number is 7.234 and the second number is 7.2336. then the difference is less than 0.001. So it will print that they are close. A year is a leap year if it is divisible by 4, except the years divisible by 100 are not leap years, unless it is divisible by 400. Now write a program that asks user for a year and print out whether it is leap year or not. So as you know, as in given in a question, first of all, you have to check whether it is divisible by 4 or not. If it is divisible by 4, then it has to check whether it is divisible by 100 or not. Because our condition is it has to be divisible by 4, but it should not be divisible by 100. And again, if it is divisible by 400, then it is a leap year. So here we have used a nested if condition. The outermost if condition is it will check whether year is divisible by 4 or not. If it is divisible by 4, then it will check whether it is divisible by 100 or not. If it is divisible by 100, then it will check whether it is divisible by 400 or not. If it is divisible by 400, then it will print it is a leap year. Else, it is not a leap year. And the next else is referring to the second if. That means if year is divisible by 100, then it will go to the next if. Otherwise, it will go to the else part. That means it is a leap year. That means if the year is divisible by 4 and not divisible by 100, then it is a leap year. And the final else is referring to the first if. That means the year is not divisible by 4, then it is not a leap year. So once you run the program, it will ask you to enter a year. Let's say the year entered is 2012, then it will print that it's a leap year. Let's in the second run, you have entered the year value as 2019, then it will print that it's not a leap year. And a third run, if you enter the value as 2020, then it is a leap year. So this is how you can do it by using nested if, and you can also do the same program by using single if statement by using and or operator that I have done in other videos also. You can just check them. Now this program is to input three sides of a triangle and check if these sides form a triangle or not. As you know, the condition is the sum of any two sides should be greater than the other side. So we will just put this condition in our if statement. So first of all, we have to take the sides of the triangle in three variables, let's say a, b, c. And the condition is if a plus b is greater than c and b plus c is greater than a and c plus a is greater than b. If all these three conditions are satisfied, then it has to print that yes, it can form a triangle. Else it will print that no, it can't form a triangle. So once you run the program, let's say the sides entered are 7, 4 and 5. Then you can see, yes, it can form a triangle. That means the any two sides sum is greater than the third side or the other side. And the second run, let's say the sides are 8, 3 and 4, then it will print that it can't form a triangle. Why? Because the sum of 3 plus 4 is 7 and which is less than 8. It's not satisfying the condition, so it will print that it can't form a triangle. Now write a program to input a digit and print it in words. So this is also a very simple program. Just you have to use if else if statements over here. So first of all, you have to enter a digit and that has to be stored in a variable, let's say d. Now it will just give the conditions you have to give. If d equal to 0, then it has to print 0. If d equal to 1, then print 1. If d equal to 2, it has to print 2. These are all the equivalent words, word representation of the numbers. So once you run the program, it will ask you to enter a digit. So let's say the digit entered is 7, then it will just print 7 in words. The second run, if you enter a digit as 0, then it will print 0 in words. Now write a program to check whether the square root of a number is a prime number or not. So this question is having two parts. First of all, we have to check whether the number is a perfect square or not. If it is a perfect square, then only it will have a square root. Then once we get the square root, then we have to check whether the square root is a prime number or not. So first of all, we will do it in two parts. So we will accept the number and store it in a variable, let's say num. Now we will check whether num is a perfect square or not. If it is, then what is its square root? So what logic we will put over here? We will just start with starting from 1 till that number. We will check, is there any number whose square is giving us that particular number? So for r in range 1 to num, if r into r equal to num, then it has to print that square root is r. So here you can take the range from 1 to num I have taken, but you can also take 1 to num by 2. That is also fine. Why to check till the number? You can just check the number divided by 2. Let's say, for example, if you want to check whether 16 is a perfect square or not, then it has to check for all the numbers starting from 1 to 15. That's what it's done in this program. It will check from 1 to 15 and it will check whether there is any number whose square is giving you that value 16 or not. So instead of checking from 1 to 15, we can just check from 1 to let's say 8. Like that you can check, you can give num by 2 plus 1 in the range. But here I have given 1 to num so that it will check 1 to till that number minus 1. So anyway, that is fine. This will give you the square root as r. And one more variable I have taken perfect squares that will be that will be with the value true. That will be assigned with the value true. And it will break. That means it will come out of the loop from there whenever it will find a square root of this number. Otherwise, that means if it will check for all the numbers, that means for loop will complete its execution and it will not find any number which is whose square is giving you the number num, then it will assign false value to this variable perfect square. So this is your first half of the program. This is done. That means if the number is a perfect square, that means it is having a square root, then your perfect square will be assigned with a value true. Otherwise, it will assign with a value false. Now the next thing is that means if perfect square is equal to true, that means we got the square root of this number and this number is a perfect square. Then we have to check whether this number is a prime number or not. So as you know how to check the number is a prime number or not, we have to take a range of 2 till the number minus 1 and we'll go on dividing all these numbers with this particular number. And if we are finding any factor in between, then it is not a prime number. Otherwise, it is a prime number. That means it should not have any factor other than 1 and that number. So we will check for all the numbers starting from 2 to num minus 1. So for n in range 2 to r. So r is the square root. So it will check for from 2 to till r means r minus 1. So n will range from 2 to r minus 1. It will check if r is divisible by n or not. If r is divisible by n, that means there is some factor which is existing between a range 2 to r. So it will print r is not a prime number and it will come out of the loop by using break. Otherwise, once this for loop will complete its execution and it will not find any number which is divisible, which is a factor of this r, then it will print in the else part, it will print r is a prime number. You can see this else refers to this for. Then it will print it as a prime number. Otherwise, final else is just the previous if. That means if perfect square is true, then it has to check whether it is prime or not. Otherwise, that means if perfect square is not true, then it has to print the number is not a perfect square number. Let's say the number entered is 12. It's not a perfect square. So it has to print it is not a perfect square. Now let's run this program. Once you run the program with a number 4, then it will find that its square root is 2 and it will print 2 is a prime number. Now in our next run, let's say the number entered is 81, then it will find that its square root is 9 and it will print 9 is not a prime number. Then a third run, let's say we have entered a number 56, which is not a perfect square, then it will just print it is not a perfect square. Why? Because first part of the program you can see in a for loop, it will check for all the numbers and will not find any square root. Then you'll go to the else part and perfect square will be assigned with the value false. Then finally it will print it is not a perfect square. Now write a program to print first n odd numbers in descending order. So the nth odd number is calculated by 2 to the 2 into n minus 1. That means first odd number is 2 into 1 minus 1, that is 2 minus 1, that is 1. And the second odd number is 2 into 2, that is 4 minus 1, 3. So like this you can calculate the nth odd number. Nth odd number is 2 into n minus 1. So we will just put it in a loop. So first you have to take n value. Now for I in range n to 0 with a step value minus 1, that means I will iterate from n to 1 and it has to print 2 into I minus 1. So like that you can get the first n odd numbers in descending order. So once you run the program, let's say the number you want to enter is 7, then first 7 odd numbers in descending order are like this. The seventh odd number is 2 into 7 minus 1, that is 13. And the sixth odd number is 2 into 6 minus 1, that is 11. Like this, you'll get till the lowest odd number, that is 1. Now write a short program to print the following series. The first series is 1, 4, 7, 10, like this till 40. So as you can see in this series, the numbers are getting increased by plus 3. The step value is plus 3. That means 1 plus 3, 4, 4 plus 3, 7, like this. So we can take a for loop where the loop will start from 1 and it will stop till 40 and the step value will be 3. So this is a very simple program. You can just take for I in range 1 to 41. We have to take 41 so that it can reach till 40 and the step value is 3. Then it has to print I value. Now you run the program and you'll get the output like this: 1, 4, 7, 10, 13. This series will be printed. And the next series is 1 minus 4, then 7 minus 10, like this. So as you can see in this series, all the even numbers are negative numbers and the odd numbers are positive numbers. That means the previous series, the same thing, I will be in range from 1 to 41 with a step value 3. But here it has to check whether I is even or odd. If it is even number, then you have to just print minus I. Or else if it is an odd number, then you have to print just I. So within for loop, you have taken a if condition. So if I percent 2 equal to 0, then it has to print minus I. Otherwise, it has to print I. Then here we have, we are using an end statement so that it will not go to the next line. Every numbers will be printed in the same line. So the output is like this: 1 minus 4, then 7 minus 10, 13 minus 16, like this it will continue. And one more thing, there is one more video where I have just discussed how to write all these series. Different kinds of series are there. So you can just check it in the information, or the I button is there, you can see. If you click on that, you can get the link of that video. You can check it. There are so many series is done by using loop. Now write a program to find average of list of numbers entered through keyboard. So what will happen? You have to enter the number while running the program at runtime. And how many numbers you have to enter, for that you can use a loop, that is while loop. So until while is true, you have to enter the numbers. And when the condition will be there, you have to stop putting the numbers. Then it has to count how many numbers you have entered. Then it will take the sum of the numbers and divide with the count of numbers. That's how you can get the average of the numbers. So we'll do it like this. First, we will take a variable s, which will store the sum of the numbers, that is initialized with 0. And c is a variable which will store how many numbers you have entered. So that is also initialized with 0. Now the condition is like this: while true, true is just a statement you can directly pass within the while loop. Then it has to, yeah, it will ask the user to enter a character y or n. If the user enters y, then it has to, that means if answer is equal to y, that means that character will be stored in a variable, let's say ans. So if that is y, then it will again ask the user to enter a number. That means the user wants to enter a number. So that number will be stored in a variable n. Now C will be increased by 1. That means it will store the count, how many numbers the user has entered. Once the user will enter one number, then count value will be incremented by 1. And S is a variable which will add the number and store it in S. Now if answer is equal to no n, that means the user has entered the character n, that means the user is no more interested to enter more numbers, then it has to enter n so that the loop will break. That means the control will come out of the loop. You will exit the loop through that. Now after that, average will be calculated as sum divided by count, or S by C. Then you can just print sum is S and count is C and average is AVG. So this is how you can write your program. Now let's run this program. Now once you run the program, it will print a message, enter Y to enter a number and N to stop. This is a message which we are given in the input statement. Suppose the user entered Y, so it will ask the user to enter a number 7. Then again it will ask whether to enter a number or not. So if you press Y, then it will again ask you to enter another number. Like this, you can enter some numbers. And when you press N, that means it will exit the loop and it will not ask you any more numbers. Then it will print sum is 36. That means the numbers that you have entered, that sum is 36, and how many numbers you have entered, it will print the count is also 6. Then it will print average is 36 by 6, that is 6. Now write a program to input three sides of a triangle and print whether it is equilateral, scalene, or isosceles triangle. So as you know, if the triangle's two sides are same, then it is an isosceles triangle. If none of the sides are same, this is a scalene triangle, and if it is all the sides are same, means equilateral triangle. So you have to enter the sides of a triangle. All the three sides are entered in three variables. Let's say A, B, and C. The first condition you have to give with an if statement. Here we have used if, else if like this. So in the first if you have given if A is equal to B and A equal to C and B equal to C, that means all the three sides are same. Then it has to print it's an equilateral triangle. Else if, the second condition, else part you have to give, else if A not equal to B and A not equal to C and B is not equal to C. That means all the three sides are not same. So it has to print it is a scalene triangle. Else if, the third condition that you have to give, A is equal to B and B is not equal to C. That means two sides are same and the third side is not same. Or B equal to C and B is not equal to A. Or C equal to A and C is not equal to B. So if any of these three condition is there, that means any two sides are same, but it's not same as the third side. Then you can just print it as an isosceles triangle. Now, once you run the program, it will ask you to enter the sides. Let's say the first run is you have entered all the three sides same 5, 5, 5. Let's say then it will print it's an equilateral triangle. In the second run, if you entered the side as 7, 8, 7 like this, that means two sides are same and the third side is not same. Then it will print it's an isosceles triangle. And in the third run, let's say you have entered the sides are like this, none of the sides are same to any other side. Then it will print it's a scalene triangle. Write a program to take an integer a as input and check if it ends with 4. Print ends with 4 and if it ends with 8, print ends with 8 or print ends with neither. So this is a very simple program where you have to take a number and let's say we have stored it in a variable a. Now we have to find out the digit which is at units place of this number. How can we get it? We have to divide the number with 10 and whatever remainder we'll get, that is the digit at units place. So that will store in a variable, let's say d. So d is equal to a mod 10. So if d is same as 4, then it will print ends with 4. Else if, you have to use else if statement over here. Else if d equal to 8, then it has to print ends with 8. Else, that means it is neither ending with 4 or 8, so you can just print ends with neither. So you run this program, the first value entered, let's say 124, then it will print ends with 4. The next run, if you entered the number as 58, then it will print that it ends with 8. And a third run, let's say you entered a number like 912, then it will print it ends with neither. Now write a program to take n where n value is more than 20 as input from user and print numbers from 11 to n. When a number is multiple of 3, you have to print tip C. If multiple of 7, then you have to print top C. And when a multiple of both, then print tip C top C. So we have to take a number and it has to be greater than 20. Then we have to use a for loop to print all the numbers starting from 11 till that number. So simple, you have to write for I in range 11 till n plus 1 because we have to print till n. So you have to take n plus 1. Just print I. Then you can end with a space so that all the numbers will appear in the same line with a separated by space. Now, in a first if condition, you have to give if the number is divisible by both 3 and 7. It's divisible by 3 and divisible by 7. Then you have to print tipsy topsy. Else if it is divisible by only 3, then it has to print tipsy. Else if it is divisible by only 7, then it has to print topsy. So like this, you can just write the program, and once you run it, let's say the first number entered is 24. Then it will print all the numbers starting from 11 till 24. So 11, 12, 13, 14 like this. And finally it is printing tipsy. Why? Because 24 is divisible by only 3. Now second run, let's say the number entered is 21 and it will print all the numbers starting from 11 to 21. And this time it will print tipsy topsy. Why? Because 21 is divisible by both 3 and 7. In the third run, if you enter the number that is 28, then it will print all the numbers starting from 11 to 28 and it will print topsy as 28 is only divisible by 7. Now write a program to find largest number of a list of numbers entered through keyboard. So as we had done in some previous program, like how to enter number at the runtime through keyboard, multiple numbers, then that we can do by using a while loop. So you can give a condition while true, that means you are directly passing true within the while loop, that means the while loop will start executing. So it will ask the user to enter the character y or n, y to enter a number and n to stop. So that character will be stored in variable ans. So if your ans is equal to y, then it will ask the user to enter a number, and that will be stored in a variable n. Now initially we have taken a variable largest to store the largest number, which is initialized with 0. Now it will check if n is greater than largest, that means the number the user is entering that is greater than largest, then largest will be assigned with the value n. Like this it will continue. Then in another if, that means if answer is equal to n, so there you can use else also. That means if the answer is not y, but the user should enter n, so you should not use else over there. That means if any other character will be entered by the user, it should not stop over there. So if answer equal to n, then it will break. That means it will come out of the while loop and it will print the largest number is largest. So until the user enters y, it will ask you to enter the number. The number entered will be stored in n. So whichever is the largest number, finally that will be assigned to the variable largest. Now let's run this program. Now while running, it will print enter y to enter the number and n to stop. And the user will enter y and it will ask the user to enter a number. The user will enter a number, let's say 8. The second time also it will print whether to enter a number or to stop. And if you type y, then it will again ask you to enter another number. Let's say the number entered is 5. Like this, you can go on entering numbers. Then finally, where you want to stop, you have to just print type n so that it will stop and come out of the loop. And finally, it will print the largest number is whatever is the largest number among the numbers that you have entered, that will be stored in a variable largest, and that will be printed. Now write a program to input n numbers and print the second largest number. So here we will do the same thing that you have done in the previous program with little bit addition. So we have to take two variables, one is largest, another one is second largest, to store the largest number and the second largest number, and both are initialized with 0. Now same thing, while true, it will ask the user to enter y or n to continue the loop or to stop. So if the user enters y, that means if answer is equal to y, then it will ask the user to enter a number that will be stored in variable n. Now the condition is if n is greater than largest, then second largest will be assigned with value largest and largest will be assigned with the value n. Like this, that means if you run the program and let's say the first number entered is 8. So 8 is greater than, that means your n is greater than largest. So initially largest is having value 0. That means 8 is greater than 0. So your second largest will become the largest number. That means second largest becomes 0 and largest becomes 8 in the first iteration. Second condition is else if n is greater than second largest and less than largest. So in a first if, what happened, your largest was having value 8. If you run the program like this, you can see the run of the program the right side. So largest is having value 8 and second largest is having value 0 at that point of time. For the second number, it will check whether n is greater than second largest and less than largest or not. So in that case, second largest will be assigned with the value n. That means the second iteration, the second number entered is 5. So 5 is not greater than largest because currently our largest is having value 8. So it will go to the else if part. And here it will check whether 5 is greater than second largest and less than largest or not. So yes, 5 is greater than 0 because second largest was having value 0 and it is less than largest and largest is having value 8. So now second largest will be assigned with a value 5. Like this it will go on. Or else if answer is equal to n, that means it will continue until the user types n. That time it will break the loop and come out of the loop. So print the largest number is largest and second largest is second largest. So this is how, if you run the program, it will ask you to enter different numbers, and let's say the numbers entered as like this 8, 5, 4, 9, like this. And finally it will print the largest number is 9 and the second largest is 8. Now given a list of integers, find those which are palindromes. For example, this numbers 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 4. That means if you read it from left to right or right to left, both way it will give you the same number. So for doing that one, you have to first of all find out the reverse of the number. Once you get the reverse of the number, then you have to compare it with the original number. If the number is same as the reverse, then you can say that yes, it is a palindrome. Otherwise, it is not a palindrome. So here we have taken some numbers and we have used a list over here, a list having name LST, and in that list we have stored some numbers, let's say 23707, 432134 and 56, like this. These are the numbers we have stored in a list. Now we will check one by one all these numbers and we will find out which numbers are palindrome and which are not palindrome. So our for loop will check all the numbers present in the list. So we can write for n in LST. N is a variable which will iterate through all the items of the list. And we will store that n value in a variable called num. So num is equal to n. And ref is a variable which is initialized with 0 to store the reverse of the number. Now with this while loop, we will find out the reverse of a number. So how to do that? We will just keep the condition while n not equal to 0. We have to find out the digits. each digits from the number. So how to find out the reverse of a number? First of all, we will collect the digits from a number starting from the units place. So whatever value is there in the units place, that will come to your right position. That means the right side digit will come to the left side. How it will be done? Let's say if you are taking the number as 23, then first of all we have to find out the units digit, that is 3. So how to do that? We have to divide it with 10 and get the remainder. The remainder is the units place digit. So that is stored in a variable, let's say D. And your number becomes n division 10. That means n is replaced by n by 10. N will become 23 by 10, that is 2. Next time n value is 2. Then it will calculate reverse is equal to reverse into 10 plus d. So your d value was 3, so reverse was initially 0. So 0 into 10 is 0 plus 3, that is 3. First iteration. The second iteration, your n value has become 2. So d will become 2 percentage 10, that is 2. And your n will become 2 divided by 10, that is 0. And reverse will become reverse into 10 plus d. Earlier reverse will having value 3, so 3 into 10, 30 plus 2, 32. So like this you can find out the reverse of a number. So this loop will continue until your n becomes 0. So once you calculated the reverse of the number, then you'll compare with the original number. If num is equal to REV. So initially we have just stored this number in a variable num, so that at the end of the loop your n value will become 0. So we can't compare with n. So we have stored it in separate variable num. Then we will compare. If num is equal to REV, then it has to print it's a palindrome. Otherwise it will print it's not a palindrome. Now, once you run the program, then it will give you the output like this. First of all, 23 is not a palindrome, and 707 is palindrome, and 432134 is a palindrome, and 56 is not palindrome. And to get some clear idea about all these basic programs, you can just check the link which is given in the I button over there. You can see in the screen. If you press that, you can get the link to some basic programs in Python. So there, these programs are discussed in detail. So next program is to read an integer x and determine the number of integers n in x. Now form an integer y that has n at its tens place and most significant digit of x is at units place. For example, if x is having value 2134, 2134, then y is equal to 42. That means y will, first of all, we have to calculate how many digits are there in x. So that is the tens place digit in y. So there are 4 digits, so tens place y is having value 4. And the most significant bit of x, that is 2, that will be stored in the units place of y. So your y becomes 42. So now let's do this one. First of all, we have to accept the number x stored in a variable x. Then c is a variable to count the number of digits in x, which is initialized with 0. Now we can count it like this by using a while loop. Here we can take r is equal to x percent is 10. That means the remainder or the digit which is at units place, that you can get by dividing it with 10. Now your x becomes x division 10. The number will get reduced by one digit by using this division. Now c is equal to c plus 1. Every time your loop will execute, counter value will increase. So it will count the number of digits present in this number. So everything will be taking place until your x value becomes 0. Now it will print the number of digits in x as c. At the end of the loop, you'll find out the number of digits present in x. So that is stored in a variable c. Now it will print the most significant digit of x is r, because the final value of r will be the most significant bit of x. That means the last value of r is the most significant digit. And y will be calculated like this: c into 10 plus r. because that is C is at tens position. So C into 10 will give you the value at tens position and plus R. So your value will be printed. So once you run the program, let's say the number entered is 2134, which is the X value. Number of digits in X, it will print as 4, and the most significant digit of X is 2. And finally, Y becomes 42. Now write a program to print every integer between 1 and n divisible by m. Also report whether the number divisible by m is even or odd. So here, first of all, we will take a for loop. That means we have to print every integer between 1 and n. So we have taken two variables n and m, and these two values will be accepted by the user at runtime. Now for I in range 1 to n, that means it will check for all the numbers present in in the range 1 to n if it is divisible by m or not. If it is divisible by m, then another if which is nested within this if, so you are using nested if condition. If I is an even number, if I percent is 2 equal to 0, then it has to print I is even, else it will print I is odd. So this is how once you run the program, suppose the entered value is 50 for n and value for m is 7. Then it will check for all the numbers starting in range 1 to n plus 1. That means from 1 to 50, it will check whether the numbers are divisible by 7 or not. So whatever numbers are divisible by 7, it will print those numbers. Again, it will check whether these are even or odd. So the numbers which are divisible by 7 are 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42, and 49. And subsequently, it also printed whether it is even or odd. Now write a program to sum the given sequence, that is 2 by 9 minus 5 by 13 plus 8 by 17, like this till 7 terms. So you can see the first number is 2 by 9 and the second number is the numerator is increased by 3, that is 5, and denominator is increased by 4, that is 13. Like this it is continuing every time the numerator gets increased by 3 and the denominator gets increased by 4. But the thing is that the alternative numbers are negative numbers. The first number is positive, next one is negative, then positive. Like this, it will continue. So how to do this? First of all, we have to take the first number, that is 2 by 9. So we will take two variables n to store numerator and d to store denominator. So n is initialized with 2 and d is with 9. And another variable sum is there which is initialized with 0. Now for I in range 7, because we have to take 7 terms, and here we have written I in range 7, that means I will have values 0, 1, 2, 3 up to 6. So that will be 7 terms, but starting number is 0. Now term is equal to n by t. Term is a variable which will store n divided by d. And sum is equal to sum plus minus 1 to the power I into the term. So what will happen? Minus 1 to the power I is, here we will just take this basic rule that that any negative number, if it is raised to a positive power, then it will give you a positive number. That minus 1 to the power 2 will give you plus 1, and minus 1 to the power 3 will give you minus 1. Like this, that means minus 1, if it is raised to an even power, it will give you positive value, and if it is raised to a negative odd number, then it will give you a negative value, and if it is raised to the power 0, then it will give you a positive one also. So the first case where your I value is 0, then minus 1 to the power I, that is minus 1 to the power 0, that is plus 1 into term. So term is n by d, and n and d are having value 2 by 9. So your first number of the series is 2 by 9. Now the second number here, n will be increased by 3 and d will be increased by 4. So your second term is n by d, that is 5 by 13. But sum will be calculated like this. Sum is equal to sum plus your term will be multiplied with minus 1 to the power I. Here your I value is 1, the second iteration of the loop. So minus 1 to the power 1, that will give you minus 1. So term will be multiplied with -1. So your 5 by 13 will become -5 by 13. So like this, your loop will continue. And it will finally print the sum of the series is sum. You can get the sum of the series is 0.3642 like this. You can also use a round function so that it will be rounded up to certain digit. Now this is a simple question. You have to just print the sum of this series, that is 1 square plus 3 square plus 5 square like this till n square. You have to take n as input. So first of all take n value as input, and sum is a variable which is initialized with 0 to store the sum of the series. Now for I in range 1 till n, so here you have to take n plus 1 so that it will iterate till n, and step value is 2. That means I value is initially 1, then second value will be 3, then third value is 5 like this. Then sum is equal to sum plus I to the power 2. So I squared will be done every time and that will be added. Then finally it will print sum of the series is sum. So once you enter the value for n, let's say 6, then it will print the sum of the series is 35. So it will print up to n square. So you have taken your n value is 6, so it will print first is 1 square plus 3 square plus 5 square. These are the three numbers which are between 6 till 6. So 1 plus 9 plus 25 will give you the value as 35. Now write a program to sum the sequence 1 plus 1 by 1 factorial plus 1 by 2 factorial like this till 1 by n factorial. So here you have to take n as input. So first of all, we have to find out the factorial of the numbers from 1 to n. So as you know, the factorial of a number is the product of all numbers starting from 1 till that number. So we have to take a for loop to find out the factorial of each number starting from 1 to n. Now we will divide all these factorials with 1. That means 1 by 1 factorial, then 1 by 2 factorial, all this. Then we have to find out the sum of these terms. Now let's begin with the program. First of all, take the value of n. Now sum is a variable which will be initialized with 1 over here. Earlier you used to initialize sum with 0, but here we have to take it as 1. Why? Because in the sequence you can see there is it begins with a number 1. So it is 1 plus 1 by 1 factorial plus 1 by 2 factorial like this. That means 1 by 1 factorial plus 1 by 2 factorial, all these are in a sequence. But this one is one extra number which is there at the beginning of the sequence. So we will just put this one in the variable sum, and the rest of the sequences will be added with this 1 so that you'll get your final result. Now for num in range 1 to n plus 1, that means num will range from 1 to n. And if is a variable initialized with 1 to store the factorial of each number. Now for I in range 1 to num plus 1, f is equal to f into I. So that means for each number we have to find out the factorial. Okay, so this is a nested for statement. The first for loop will iterate from all the numbers starting from 1 to n, and in the inner for loop we will find out the factorial of each number. Now, after finding the factorial, that means the outside of the inner for loop, we have to just write the statement sum is equal to sum plus 1 divided by factorial. So like this, it will give you the factor sum of this series. Now finally, we can print the sum of this series as this. So here the entered value for n is 5. So as you can see here, I have also written a print statement within the inner for loop so that you can get to know the factorial of each number. So factorial of 1 is 1. So after that, sum is equal to sum plus 1 by factorial. So initially sum was having value. So now sum is equal to 1 plus 1 by 1 factorial. The second iteration, it will be sum plus 1 by 2 factorial. Like this, it will continue, and finally the sum of the series is 2.717. Now write a program to accept the age of n employees and count the number of persons in age group 26 to 35, then 36 to 45 and 46 to 55. So first of all, we have to take the age of n employees within a loop. And within that loop, we have to use if statement to count how many persons are in which age group. So first of all, take the value of n, that is the number of employees. Now there are three age groups, and to store the count of each age group, we have created three variables. Let's say group 1, group 2, and group 3. And all these three are initialized with 0. Now, with the help of a for loop, we will accept the values for the age of all n employees. So for I in range n, that means I will iterate from 0 to n minus 1. That means it will take n values or n number of ages. Now, age is a variable which will store the age of our employee. We have to give a message, input, enter the age. Now, if age is between 26 to 35, it is greater than equal to 26 and less than equal to 35, then you just increment this group 1 with 1. So group 1 will be group 1 plus 1. Else if the age is between 36 to 45, then group 2 will be incremented by 1. Else if age group is between 46 to 55, then group 3 will be increased by 1. And at the end of the loop, you will find out how many persons are there in each age group. You just have to print the number of employees in age group 26 to 35 for group 1 and then group 2, group 3 like this. So once you run the program, it will ask you to enter the number of employees. Let's say I have entered 5, so it will ask you to enter 5 ages. So first age is, let's say, 29, then 44, then 41, then 48 and 27. These are the 5 ages of 5 employees. Now it will print the number of employee in age group 26 to 35 for 2, then number of employees in age group 36 to 45 for 2, and the number of employee in age group 46 to 55 for 1. Now write a program to find sum of the following series. The series is like this: x minus x squared by 2 factorial plus x cubed by 3 factorial minus x to the power 4 by 4 factorial, like this. So there are total 7 terms. So here the first term is x, which can be considered like x to the power 1 by 1 factorial. Then it will be like a series. That means each term the power is increasing by 1 and the denominator is also increasing by 1. The first term, that is 1 factorial, next 2 factorial, then 3 factorial, like this. And one more thing is that here the alternate terms are negative terms. That means the terms at the position second, fourth, and sixth, these are the negative terms. So we will take a variable x as input, and we will take another variable sum, which is initialized with 0. Now for num in range 1 to 7, because there are 6 terms, so num will range from 1 to 7. So here f is equal to 1, which will store the factorial of the numbers. So here in the next for loop, we will find out the factorial of the particular number. So for I in range 1 to num plus 1, f is equal to f into I. So there you got the factorial. Now the next thing is that the terms are like this: first positive, then negative, like this. So for that purpose, we will define each term and we'll store in a variable term. So term will be like this: minus 1 to the power num minus 1 into x to the power num divided by f. So what will happen here? That means in a first term, that means when your term is 1, there your x value is whatever value you have taken for x, that will be taken. Now the first term is minus 1 to the power 1 minus 1, that is 0. Okay, now into x to the power 1 divided by 1 factorial. So that will be minus 1 to the power 0 is plus 1. So plus 1 into x to the power 1 by 1 factorial, that will be x. So this is how you will get your first term. The second term is like this: minus 1 to the power 2 minus 1, that is num minus 1, that is 2 minus 1, into x to the power num divided by factorial. of that particular number. That will be minus 1 into x to the power 2 by 2 factorial. Like this, it will continue. That means the first term will be minus 1 to the power 0, and second term will be minus 1 to the power 1 multiplied with the particular number. So, like this, you will get the positive and negative numbers alternately. So, this will continue up till 7 terms. So, finally, you will get the result like this. Suppose the entered value for x is 2, here you can take any value for x, then accordingly you'll get the sum of the series. And also you can refer to one more video where all this sum of the sequence and series is explained, which link is given in the description box and you can check it. Now here this is x plus x square by 2 plus x cube by 3 till x to the power n by n. Here you have to take x and n both as input. So this is a very simple program. First of all, first x can be considered as x to the power 1 divided by 1. So we will take x and n as input. Now sum is initialized to 0. Now I will range from 1 to n plus 1. That means it will have values 1, 2, 3 till n. Then sum will be sum plus x to the power I divided by I. In the first iteration, I value will be 1, so that will be x to the power 1 divided by 1. The second iteration, it will be x to the power 2 divided by 2. Like this, the terms will be generated and they will be added. Now finally, you'll get the result in a variable sum. So once you run the program, let's say the entered value for x is 2 and entered value for n is 4, then you'll get the sum of the series is 10.667. Now the next question is to draw this pattern. You can see this is a diamond pattern. So this diamond is consisting of two triangles. So we will consider the first upper half of this pattern, that is a first upper triangle. So we will consider how many rows are there in the upper part of this diamond. You can see there are 5 rows and the lower part is having 5 minus 1, that is 4 rows. So in a first row there is 1 star, second row 2 stars, third row 3 stars, and like this in a fifth row there are 5 stars. So like this you have to print. So how to do this? First of all, we have to consider how many spaces are there in each row and how many stars are there. In the first row there are 4 spaces and 1 star. In second row there are 3 spaces and 2 stars. The third row there are 2 spaces and 3 stars. Like this it is going on. So you can just see here. So first of all, you have to take R is equal to 5. That means number of rows in upper half of the diamond that you have to take. Let's say here it is 5. Now we will draw the upper part of the diamond. So here you can see in upper part, the number of spaces is R minus I. R is having value 5 and I is having value the row number. When I is equal to 1, then you can see R minus 1 is 4. So 4 spaces and 1 star. In second row, you can see there are 3 spaces and 2 stars like this, and number of stars equal to I. So whichever is the row number in that particular row, that many number of stars are there. So this is in the upper half portion. And in the lower part, you can see again your I value is starting with 1, 2, 3 and continuing till 4. That is 5 minus 1, R minus 1. So in the lower part, you can see the number of spaces is equal to I and the number of stars is equal to R minus I. So that means when the row number is 1, you can see the blue colored part. That is the row number is 1, then the number of spaces is 1 and number of stars is equal to 5 minus 1, that is 4. In next row, when row is 2, then number of spaces is 2 and number of stars are 5 minus 2, that is 3. So like this it is going on. So we have to just implement this logic in your program. Now let's do the program. Now let us first enter the number of rows, that means the number of rows in the upper half of the diamond. Now we will construct the upper half of the diamond. For I in range 1 to R plus 1. So if your row is 5, then I will range from 1 to 5. So you have to give I in range 1, comma R plus 1. Then you have to print R minus I number of spaces plus I number of stars. You can see first of all space, then star. So R minus I is when R value is 1. Then r minus I is 5 minus 1, that is 4 number of spaces, and I is 1, so it will print 1 star. Like this, it will just construct the upper half of the diamond. Then we will construct the lower half of the diamond. Here for I in range 1 to R. That means I will start with 1, and R means if the number of rows you have entered 5, then the lower half there will be 4 rows. So it will range from 1 to R. So I will have value 1, 2, 3 up to R minus 1. Now it will print I number of spaces followed by R minus I number of stars. So like this, you will get the lower half of your diamond. So once you run the program, it will ask you to number of rows, basically the number of rows in the upper half of the diamond. So if you enter it as 4, then you can get like this. Then in the lower half, there will be 3 rows and the structure will be like this. And the second run, if you enter the number of rows as 3, then you can get the diamond like this. Now, the next pattern is like this. You have to write a program to draw a pattern like this. Here you can see in a first row there is 1 star, second row 2 stars, in the third row there are 3 stars, and in a fourth row there are 2 stars, then 1 star like this. So we will divide this pattern into 2 halves. Now first upper triangle. Upper triangle is, that means it will start from the top position till the middle position where there are maximum number of stars. So there are like 3 rows. You can see in the upper part of the triangle there are 3 rows, and in the lower part there are 2 rows. Okay, so now we will do this. Now we have to take R where we have to input the number of rows. This is the number of rows in the upper right triangle of this pattern. So here in this diagram you can see there are 3 rows. So you have to give the value like this. You can give any value, accordingly you will get the pattern. Now I will range from 1 to R plus 1. So if R is 3, then I will have value 1, 2 and 3. Then you have to print that many number of stars, I number of stars. So in a first iteration, it will print 1 star. In the second iteration, it will print 2 stars. Third iteration, it will print 3 stars. And here you can see I have given a space also after this star. So all the stars will be separated by a space. So this is your first part is done. Then in the second for loop, you have to draw the lower triangle. So the lower triangle, you can see your I will range from R minus 1 till 0. That means if your upper part is having 3 rows, then the down part will have 2 rows, R minus 1 number of rows. So I will range from R minus 1 to 0 with a step value minus 1. Then it has to print that many number of stars. So it will print here R minus 1 is 2, so it will print 2 stars. Then R minus your 2 minus 1, that is 1. So next it will print 1 star. Like this it will print. So once you run the program, you have to enter the number of rows. This number of rows is the only the rows of the upper right triangle. So if you want, if you give the value as 5, then you can see the pattern is like this. Here in the upper right triangle part, there are 5 rows. In the lower triangle part, there are 4 rows. Like this, you'll get the pattern like this. Now in a second run, let's say if you enter the number of rows as 4, then you can see in upper part you'll have 4 rows, lower part you'll have 3 rows, and you'll get a pattern. Like this you can enter any number of rows and you'll get it like this. Now this pattern we have to do. This is a hollow diamond pattern. Here you can see there are total 5 number of rows, and you can see also there are total 5 number of columns. In the first column there is only the leftmost star is there. The next column 2 stars are there. Third column also 2 stars. Fourth also 2 stars, and fifth 1 star. Like this we see. Then it is having 5 rows and 5 columns. You can just check this figure. You can see the rows are having value represented by I, ranging from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the column value is represented by J, that is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, like this. So here you can see the colored cells are those particular cells where the stars are there. Now we have to write a program where we will print the stars only those particular locations of this matrix, and the other locations will be occupied with space. Now you can see, and one more thing I would like to say here, you can just refer to one pattern printing programs are there and one video is there, and the link is there in the description box. There you'll get the information about how to draw the patterns easily. So you can just refer to that video so that this one will be easier for you. So here, first of all, you have to take the value of S. S is nothing but the number of rows and number of columns. So here in this kind of pattern, you can see the number of rows and columns will be same. So we will just draw the stars, and the stars can be divided into four groups. Now first group will be the upper left part of the diamond. Next is the lower left part of the diamond, which is colored in yellow. Then upper right part of the diamond, which is colored in red, and the lower right part of the diamond, which is colored in blue. So this four category of stars are there, and we have to give four different conditions for that. So you can see we will just now focus on the upper left part of the diamond, that means those particular cells which are colored with green. So here you can see there is one condition is satisfied. Here I plus j value is equal to s divided by 2. You can see the first green colored cell. Here the row value is 2 and column value is 0. 2 plus 0 is giving you 2. The next green colored cell is the row value is 1 and column value is 1. 1 plus 1 is also giving you the result as 2. The next one is row 1 and column 2. So that is row 0 and column 2. That is also giving you 2. So here all these three cells are satisfying this condition where I plus j is S floor division 2. So that's done. So whichever cells are satisfying this condition, there you have to print the stars, and now you will get the stars printed of the this upper left part of this diamond. Now let's go to the lower left part of the diamond, which are colored in yellow. So there you can see the condition is I minus j is equal to s divided by 2. So here I value is the row value, that is 3, and j value is 1. So 3 minus 1 is giving you 2. And similarly, the next one is I value is 4 and j value is 2, and 4 minus 2 is also giving you 2. So here these cells are satisfying this condition where I minus j is equal to s divided by 2. Now for upper right part of the diamond, which are colored in red, you can see the condition is j minus I is equal to s divided by 2. Here j value is 3 and I value is 1. 3 minus 1 is 2. And next is j value is 4 and I value is 2. 4 minus 2 is also 2. So here this condition is satisfied where j minus I will be s divided by 2. Then the for lower right part of the diamond, here you can see there is one cell which is colored blue. There you can see the condition can be like this. I plus j is equal to 3 into s minus 1 divided by 2. I plus j is 3 plus 3, that is 6. 6 is 3 into s minus 1 by 2. Here s is 5, so s minus 1 is 4. So 3 into 4 is 12. 12 by 2 is 6. So if you add I plus j, then you'll get this condition to be satisfied. Now let's check this in another figure where S is 7. That means there are 7 rows and 7 columns. Then here also you can see the upper left part of the diamond is which is colored is green. So there also it is satisfying the condition I plus j will be S divided by 2. In the lower left part of the diamond, which is colored yellow, that also satisfy I minus j is equal to s by 2. Like this, all these conditions will be satisfied. Whatever size you may take, the number of rows and columns can be 5 or 7 or anything. So that will give you the output like this. Now we will just implement these conditions in our program. Now let's do the program. Now we have to take S as input. Here just remember to enter a odd number. Why? Because this kind of pattern, there the size will be number of rows and number of columns will be always, it will be an odd number. So you have to enter an odd number. Now for loop, you have to take for I in range S. Within that, for j in range s, that means for each value of I, there are s values of j. So I will range from 0 to s, whatever size will take. If you take size as 5, then it will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, like this. Just we discussed in a previous figure. So for each row, there will be s number of columns that you have to do in nested for. Within that, you have to give the condition, those conditions that we have given. If I plus j equal to s by 2, or I minus j equal to s minus s by 2, or j minus I equal to s by 2, or I plus j equal to 3 into s minus 1 by 2. If all these conditions are any of these conditions are satisfied, then you have to print star in that particular location. Otherwise, you have to print space. And one more print in the at the end of the inner for loop, so that the next stars will be printed in the next row. So once you run the program and you have entered the number of rows or the size as 7, then you can see the output is like this. It will be having like 7 rows and 7 columns actually. So if you just print a space after this star, where you have printed star, if you give a space over there, then you can get a distinct figure where it will be, the stars will be little bit separated and you'll get a more nice picture. So here I have not given space, so it is looking narrow, but this is like this only. If you enter the number of rows as 9, then you'll get the pattern like this. Now the next pattern is like this. You have to print a hollow pattern like this. So here you can see in this pattern there are 7 number of rows and some like 4 number of columns. Okay, so you can see this in this figure, in the cell structure I have given you this. If you just consider a matrix having size 7 cross 4, that means 7 rows and 4 columns, then the stars will be there in a first column, in a second column, second row and sixth row, in a third column, third row and fifth row, and a fourth column, fourth row. So these are the positions where you have to print the star. So you can just write the program like this. For I in range 1 to 8, because there are 7 rows, so you have to take 1 to 8. Now for j in range 1 to 5, because there are 4 columns, so you can take 1 to 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, like this. So you can see if j equal to 1, that means the column value is 1. Then you have to print star. Here you can see the yellow colored cells. There you have to print stars and the condition is j equal to 1. That means that is the first column. The second condition is or I equal to j. Then you can see those cells which are colored in green color. You can see there I equal to j. That means row number is 2, column number is 2, row number is 3, column number 3, row number 4, column number 4. So those are the places where you have to print star. Or I plus j equal to 8. Those two cells which are colored in blue, there you can see the condition, that is I plus j is equal to 8. 5 plus 3, 8. 6 plus 2, 8. So those particular cells have to be occupied with stars. Then you have to print star in those particular locations. Else you have to print space in other locations. So this is how you have to. Now in this question you have to print a pattern like this. In a first row there is only one A, second row A, B, third row A, B, C, like this it will continue. So what it is, like this you can see, you have to first of all enter the number of rows in a variable, let's say R. Then we have to use a nested for loop to draw this structure. Your I will range from 1 to R plus 1 and J will range from till I. That means in a first row, that means if the row number is 1, then J will have also only one value. That means first value of I is 1, so J will have one value, that is 0. Similarly, when it will go to the next row, I value will be 2, then j will have two values 0 and 1 because j is ranging till I. Like this, it will continue till the number of rows you have entered. Now within that, it has to print CHR of 65 plus j. So as you know, 65 is the equivalent ASCII. 65's equivalent ASCII character is uppercase A. So 65 plus j, initial value of j is 0. So that will print A, capital A, because it converted into character by using CHR function. So it will print A over there. In the second row, it will print A and B. Why? Because J will have two values 0 and 1. So 65 plus 0, it will print A, and 65 plus 1, that is 66, that is B. Like this, it will continue. In a third row, it will print 65 plus 0 A, 65 plus 1 B, 65 plus 2, that is C, because J is having three values, and so on. So once you run the program, let's say the entered number of rows is 8, then it will print like this 8 rows, and in each row you can see the alphabets are increasing like this. And in the second run, let's say you have entered the number of rows as 6, then you'll get the output like this. Now we have to draw this pattern. First in a first row 0, second row 2, 2, third row 4, 4, 4, next row 8, 8, 8, 8. Like this it will continue. So what you have to do, first of all, you have to take R as input, how many number of rows you want to print, that you have to take as input. Now we have to take a nested for loop. For I in range 1 to R, I will iterate through the number of rows, and J will range 1 to I plus 1, and J will iterate through the value of I. And that many number of times it has to print I into I minus 1 plus I floor division 2. So by this formula, you can get this pattern of numbers 0, 2, 4, 8, like this you'll get. And how many times it will be printed? It will be printed like j times, j in range 1 to I plus 1. So that means when I value is 1, you can see it is described over here. You can see I will range from 1 to R, and for each value of I, J will have I number of values. So when I will have value 1, J will also have one value, that is 1, because J is ranging from 1 to I plus 1. Initial value of I is 1, so J will range from 1 to 2, that means J will have one value 1. So when J is having value 1, that means it will print one time. What it will print? I into I minus 1 plus I floor division 2, that is 1 into 1 minus 1 plus 1, that is 0 plus 1, 1 floor division 2, that will give you 0. So it will print 0 one time because J has one value, so it will iterate only one time. Now the next iteration, when I will have value 2, that case J will have two values 1 and 2. So here it will print what? 2 into 2 minus 1 plus 2. Here I value is 2, so it will print 2 into 2 minus 1, that is 2, plus 2 is 4. 4 floor division 2 will give you 2. So it will print 2 two times because J is having two values now. Now the next iteration, when I will have value 3, then J will range from 1 to 4, that means J will have values 1, 2 and 3. So how many times it will print? 3 times. 3 times what it will print? I into I minus 1 plus I floor division 2. That is 3 into 3 minus 1 plus 3 floor division 2. That will give you 8. So it will print 8 3 times because J will iterate 3 times. Like this it will continue. How many rows you have entered? That many times it will print. Now let us run this program. Once you run the program, let's say the entered number of rows is 4, then it will print 4 rows, and in each row it will print this pattern of 0, 2, 4, 8 like this. Now write a program using nested loop to produce a rectangle of stars with 6 rows and 20 stars per row. So here you have to use a nested for loop to draw this pattern. So this is nothing but a matrix of 6 cross 20 having 6 rows and 20 columns, and in each cell there will be a star. So for row in range 6, row is a variable which will iterate through 0 to 5, and for column in range 20 that will iterate through 0 to 19. Then you have to print star. In the inner for loop you have to print star and it will end with a space. Then after the end of the inner for loop, you have to just write a print statement so that the execution of the outer for loop will begin in the next line. That means the next stars will be printed in the next row. So you can see the output is like this. Here your outer for loop will iterate through the number of rows and inner for loop will iterate through the number of columns. The variable row will iterate 6 times, and each row is having 20 columns, so variable column will iterate through 20 times for each row value. So like this we'll get the output. Now given three numbers, write a program to print them in ascending order. So you have to take the three numbers in three variables A, B and C. Now first condition, you have to give multiple if statements to check which is the largest number and which is the second largest and the smallest. So first of all, the condition you can give like this: if A is less than B and A is less than C. That means when A is the smallest number, then A will be less than both B and C. Then obviously A is the smallest number, then it will print A, the smallest number is A. Within that, one more condition will be there. It will check which is greater among B and C. That means if B is less than C, then it has to print the next higher number is B and the highest number is C. Else, it has to print the next higher number is C and the highest number is B. That means if C is less than B, then in that case, it will print the else part. So this is what will be done in the first if. Otherwise, in the else if part, you can check whether B is less than A and B is less than C or not. That means B is the smallest number. If B is the smallest number, then it has to print the smallest number is B. Then within that, it will compare between A and C, which is the next higher and which is the highest. That means if A is less than C, it has to print next higher number is A and the highest number is C. Otherwise, that means when A is not less than C, then obviously C will be less than A. Then it has to print the next higher number is C and the highest number is A. Now in the last else if part, it will check whether C is less than A and C is less than B or not. That means if C is the smallest number, then it has to print C is the smallest number is C. Then again it will compare between A and B, which is the highest and which is the next higher number. If A is less than B, then it will print next higher number is A and the highest number is B. Otherwise, the next higher number is B and the highest number is A. So once you run the program, let's say the entered value for A, B, C are 12, 10 and 15 respectively. Then it will print the smallest number is 10, the next higher number is 12 and the highest number is 15. Now write a Python script to accept a temperature and its unit. Then convert it into the other unit. That means then you have to use the formula like this. Fahrenheit is equal to 9 by 5 into Celsius, the temperature in Celsius, plus 32. And Celsius will be 5 by 9 into the temperature in Fahrenheit minus 32. So you have to use these two formulas. So first of all, we have to accept a temperature and let's store it in a variable temp. And then we'll accept the unit, whether it is Celsius or Fahrenheit, that you have to store in a variable unit. Now, if unit equal to C, that means the temperature is in Celsius, then it has to be converted into Fahrenheit. Then you can use the formula F is equal to 9 by 5 into temperature in Celsius plus 32. Then it has to print the temperature in Fahrenheit is F. Else if the unit is equal to F, that means the unit entered is Fahrenheit, then you have to convert it into Celsius by using the formula 5 by 9 into temperature in Fahrenheit minus 32. So that will be stored in a variable C. Then it has to print the temperature in Celsius is C. So once you run the program, let's say the entered temperature is 100 and that is the unit is C, then it will print the temperature in Fahrenheit is 212. In the second run, let's say the entered temperature is 95 and its unit is F, then it will print temperature in Celsius is 35. Now, the next program is to ask the user to enter a temperature in Celsius, and the program should print a message based on temperature. That means if it is less than minus 273.15, it has to print it is invalid. Otherwise, if it is exactly minus 273.15, it has to print it is absolute zero. Like this, it has to print something like some statements. So just you have to use multiple if statements over there. Now let's do the program. So we will accept the temperature in Celsius from the user and store it in a variable, let's say temp. Now in a first if condition, we will check if temp is minus 273.15 or not. If it is, then it has to print it is invalid temperature. Else if temperature is equal to minus 273.15, then it has to print it as absolute zero temperature. Else if temperature is greater than minus 273.15 and less than 0, then it has to print temperature is below freezing. Like this, you have to put all these else if statements so to print the corresponding message. In the first run, let's say the entered temperature is minus 283, then it will print it is an invalid temperature. In the second run, let's say the entered temperature is 90 degrees Celsius, then it will print it as a normal range. Now here it's the solutions of chapter 4, which is like conditional and iterative statements. We have discussed all the type C questions over here. And if there is any doubt, you can put it in comment section. But I will also advise you to just go through all those videos where I've given you some basic pattern drawings and sum of sequence programs. Those links you can get in the description box, and that will be very much useful to do this exercise. And stay tuned for more solutions and do subscribe. Thank you.